Evening, I call this meeting to order pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and as amended as of March 28, 2025. This meeting will be conducted in person as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. This meeting is recorded by the local scene. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by viewing the Duxbury government access channels, which are Verizon 39 and Comcast 9. Viewers can visit thelocalscene.media/Duxbury for information about Duxbury programming, including streaming and watching replays on Duxbury YouTube. And our first order of business this evening is an executive session. This is an executive session pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss initiation of litigation regarding a paper street off North Street, where discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the town's litigation position, and if the chair so declares. To that end, as chair, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session under Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss initiation of litigation regarding a paper street off North Street, because I declare that discussing the matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Select Board, and with the Select Board adjourning upon completion of this executive session and reconvening in open session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and...
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have two people attending, and could you please ask them to log out? You don't see them, but I have them on my screen,
All right.
and then you can come back in open session.
All right, for the folks who are joining remotely, we will be moving into executive session momentarily, so we ask that you please drop from the meeting, and you can come back on. I anticipate we will be in open session at 6:30. So I have a motion and second, and now I'll call for the roll. Fernando.
Fernando, aye.
Brian, aye.
Cindy, aye.
Michael, aye.
Okay, we are in executive session pending confirmation that,
Yeah, that I have to remove them.
okay.
That means I can't come back. That's-
Everybody, we are now in open session. Our next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is open forum. Anything from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead, Mike.
Thank you. I am the liaison to the Duxbury Historical Commission. The chair asked me to read a letter to the town leadership and residents of Duxbury regarding 349 Powder Point Ave. It reads as follows. To town leadership and the residents of Duxbury. As chair of the Duxbury Historical Commission, I want to address the demolition of 349 Powder Point Avenue and the circumstances surrounding it. After reviewing the timeline, I identified that a procedural oversight occurred in the issuance of the demolition delay determination. I take full responsibility for this lapse, and I have already implemented measures to ensure the Commission's future procedural compliance, including a detailed guidebook and internal tracking system. What is deeply troubling, however, is the speed and manner in which the property owners proceeded with demolition. Although the procedural issue made enforcement impossible, I had hoped the owners would act in good faith and give the community a chance to discuss reasonable preservation alternatives. Instead, the structure was removed before any meaningful dialogue could occur. This may have been technically permissible, but it was not respectful of Duxbury's history or of the process designed to protect it. As chair, I intend to work towards strengthening administrative coordination and exploring improvements to the demolition delay bylaw to prevent opportunistic exploitation of clerical errors in the future. Duxbury's historic resources deserve more careful stewardship than what occurred at this site. Respectfully, Ed Mayo, Chair of the Duxbury Historical Commission.
Thank you, Mike. Anything else from members of the board? I have two things. One is to thank Joanne Moore and the Senior Center staff for hosting a very well-attended Veterans Breakfast this past Monday. And similarly, I'd like to acknowledge the Duxbury American Legion for holding its annual Veterans Day observance this past Tuesday. I had the honor of delivering remarks on behalf of the town, and both Fernando and Mike were there to represent the town as well. Anything from the public for open forum? Yes, sir. If you can please identify yourself for our record.
Peter Randall, 501 Elm Street. Does the town of Duxbury still own the bridge? Powder Point Bridge?
Yes.
Okay. I am asking that we put an agenda on the town meeting to have a vote for the fate of the bridge. I don't feel that it's up to 25 people to decide the fate. I think the town has the right to decide the fate of the bridge.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay?
Anything else for open forum? Anybody online for open forum? Is that a cursor or a hand? I can't see. Okay, great. So we'll move on to new business. The first item of business is discussion pertaining to an article requested by the Select Board to move the date of annual town meeting, and this is a continuation of the discussion from November 3rd. And we thank the town clerk and assistant town clerk for sticking around so late last time. We'll put you on first this time.
I appreciate that.
And
very much.
if I may, just for clarity's sake, Mr. Chairman, in your packet, you'll see the memo from October in which the following questions were asked of the board for clarity for Susan and I. The first being, does the board want to pursue moving the date of the annual town meeting from the second Saturday in March to a weeknight date in May? Mm-hmm. More specifically, a Tuesday night, which, if necessary, would be continued into Wednesday and Thursday nights. And the second question, if not, would the board like to pursue moving the date of the annual town meeting from the second Saturday in March to the first Saturday in May, with the election to follow on the third Saturday in May? If necessary, the annual town meeting would be continued into Tuesday and Wednesday nights, since Option Technologies is not available for Monday night continuations. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kelly.
So I did speak with Fernando this afternoon, and he had a chance to review the meeting from 2 weeks ago. And just to recap, my concerns were staffing challenges surrounding both the town meeting and the town election by moving it to May. There were a couple of other items that surrounding the move that I hadn't heard anybody mention during the conversations we've had up to this point. First was the moderator. I reached out to Moderator Hartford to make sure that he would be available in May as a rule going forward, and he was. But also, more importantly, availability of the school. I reached out to Chris Cass today and asked for a list or a calendar of events for the PAC and the Steel Building. And she sent me back the list to the calendar. May is their busiest month with both internal events and outside rentals. And in fact, the events are annual events, and there is not one day available in the month of May to hold a meeting, either weekday or weekend. Calendar is fully booked.
Okay. Fernando, you didn't have the benefit of asking questions last time we took this up, so let me start with you for any
Yeah.
questions or comments you'd like to make.
Right, so the reason why the select board is, as proposed this move, right, is that we are the only town, or one of the few towns that hold their annual town meeting in March. Basically, back in 2016, when I did the research, so basically, for the towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who hold their annual town meetings, May 7th is the average date of all the towns. And basically, 74% of the towns in Massachusetts hold their annual town meeting in the month of May. And why is that? Actually, it's the key piece of the annual town meeting is obviously to approve the articles and approve the budget, right? So the way we do it right now, we really jam everything in from September through to December. Meetings get held frequently for the various committees, department heads to get the budget done in time. So by moving it from March to the month of May gives an extra 2 months and gives space. So it allows for, shall we say, an efficient process, and actually takes a lot of pressure off the various committees, department heads in terms of preparing for that annual town meeting, which the budget, like I said, is a key piece, right? So that's the driver. And now I spoke with Susan. So yeah, so the question is, her concern, quite rightly, is about staffing. So what we don't want to do is move the annual town meeting to May and then basically solve a problem for one group and then put it on Susan's shoulders to solve it. So staffing is for the annual town meeting, she needs about 20 people. For the elections, if that's another conversation we're going to be having as to whether we reduce the time that the elections take place. She will need, if it's the normal 9 to 8, right? I think.
The normal election's 8 to 8.
8 to 8, she needs 70 people. But if we reduce it from 9 to 2, then basically you can do one shift of 35 people. But the bottom line is basically she wants to get comfortable that she can find the resources, the people to run the elections already. So that's a big question. And the other one is actually normally we hold the annual town elections 2 weeks afterwards, right? And so if you move it to May, there's any overrides, right? So if we move the annual the elections to another date earlier on, so to speak, then you get into problems with sequencing, right? And then the question about electronic balloting. So if we do move it, we've obviously got to address this and find a solution. Like I said, most towns have found a solution to do this, right? And it makes sense, right? Well, basically, like I said, 74% of the towns in Massachusetts hold their town meetings in May. However, Susan just told us right now that the school's not available, so that's kind of a bit of a bugger, but as they say. So yeah, I think there's still more work to be done. I haven't given up. I think we need to continue working to see if there's a solution. I don't know right now if there is one, but I'd certainly, it makes sense for our staff, right, to move that election. I've spoken with the finance director. She's keen on that. Rennie he keeps on saying he has no say in this, and I know the schools would be would appreciate more time as well to prepare the budget, so.
Well, unfortunately for the PAC event, all of these events are full orchestra setup.
Yeah,
So-
you've done the research, I understand that every day is not, the pack is not available any day during May.
Correct.
That's what you just told me, right?
Correct.
Told us.
So I
Okay.
don't know of another space where we could accommodate 900 people
Yep,
for a meeting.
yep.
In
No,
May.
I hear you, and, but we shall continue the conversation. I got to find a way to do this, right? So I will continue working it, and if I am able to find a solution where we can hold this place, if find a solution to solve your issue with making sure that we have enough personnel for you to effectively hold your elections and host a town meeting, then yes. But right now, it doesn't look, with what you just shared with us, it looks like it's an uphill struggle.
So I did want to just say, too, that the piece of paper that I passed out to you was a chart of the 50-year look back for town meeting attendance. And as you can see, there are a number of events where there was a very high attendance. I'm someone who believes that town meeting attendance is issue-driven. Regardless of when it is, we've got meetings in June, March, November, February, and if the issue is before the voters, the people turn out.
Oh, yeah, when I put the article down, back in 2016, that was my justification.
Right.
But in reality, no, you're exactly right. It is issue-driven. I do not disagree with you at all.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now, and I mentioned in my article, other benefits provide additional time to prepare, review, and comment on the town budget. And to me, as a member of the Select Board, I see all the effort that goes into that short time of period where people are spending many nights working on this to get this in time. Giving people an extra 2 months sounds like a damn fine idea. So that is why.
I completely understand the mission that drives you, but unfortunately, I look at the other challenges that are created
And I will,
to solve
if I can
that.
find the solution to your challenges, Susan, it'll be great. I hope so.
There you go.
Well, let me ask this then, Fernando, where
Yeah.
this is proposed as a warrant article for town meeting,
Yeah.
And the warrant closes before we meet next.
It's off the table.
So we'll take it off this
Yeah,
year.
but take it, I mean, Susan basically just said to me, right, said to us that any day in May, there's no availability for us to hold a town meeting. Any day in May, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the Saturday and Sunday, the pack is fully booked every single day.
I have a
Right.
copy of the calendar if
No,
you'd
it's
like
fine.
it
It's
for your reference.
You've made it very clear.
Well, in fairness to the rest of the town,
Yeah.
if it's an issue of scheduling, and
Yeah.
not saying for this year, but
Yeah.
in future years, I would think that the town would have, town meeting would have first dibs on a large meeting space
Yeah.
before, the concerts and everything are very important, of course, but I wouldn't, the space scheduling alone, I'm sure is something we could fix, or not that it needs fixing, but we could address it.
All right.
At some point, but it sounds like we're not
We're
going to
not
do it
there.
for this year.
I don't think
Okay.
we have enough time to do the research to find solutions right now for
Okay.
this annual town meeting.
Any other thoughts from members of the board?
May I?
Please.
I just wonder, going forward, if you're thinking about solutions to this, I don't know, in your research about that May date, how many of those towns do other town meetings throughout the year, or if they just do one? For example, doing just, if our concern is with our finance director and schools trying to do just a budget as a town meeting and other articles at another town meeting. And you brought up the point about the election for an override has to follow a town meeting. It doesn't. You can do an election for an override before you pass it at a town meeting. They can go in either order. So I don't know in your research if you have done that, because, certain towns do, look at Plymouth, they do a couple, some other towns are doing town meetings throughout the fall. We've done town meetings throughout the fall on issues driven. The only problem is money and time.
Exactly.
So, and that's a big issue, but I think if you're thinking about a solution down the road, If we did have a shorter town meeting with a few articles on it for a budget, you could do it on a weeknight. But to do 28 articles, multiple different issues, spread over 3 nights, that would be quite cumbersome for the community to engage. And that's, I think, the other point here. We're not God up here, and I think we do need input from the community as to whether this is something they would like going forward. So those are only points. I know we're not doing it this year, but I think we're trying to put maybe a round peg through a square hole here, and maybe there's another way of doing this that might meet your solution.
Yeah, there's more work to be done.
Right.
All right, so we will not be putting forth a warrant article.
Because otherwise it's a goal and I'll never be able to
You'll never
achieve
be able to accomplish.
I think we should keep it in there.
it. You can for next year.
Let's put that as an agenda item in a future meeting to revisit the goal, because it's not on tonight's agenda to go over goals.
But this was a goal.
This was a goal. In fact, that's what the
Right.
heading of the,
Yeah, I understand. We can, I'm happy to vote on whether we advance a warrant article or not. I'm not comfortable moving forward on a vote to adjust the goals.
okay, I will get that on another agenda then.
I think it's administrative in nature, not a big deal. We get to the same place either way. Just want to make sure we're doing it right. Okay, so do we need a vote for
You want
not
to
going
vote?
forward?
So I don't mind voting.
It's fine.
All right, well, who would like to make a motion?
So motion to suspend the town article proposing a date change for the annual town meeting.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Susan.
To be continued, thank
All
you.
right, and
Yes.
thank you, Fernando. Appreciate your leadership on this. Next is discussion and vote to Parkside Development Regulatory Agreement. This is also a continuation from November 3. I think we have somebody from Parkside joining us, and there's some information in our materials. Mike, I believe this is primarily in response to your question about monitoring the CR,
Yes.
or not the CR, the affordability. I see a hand up. Mr. Cussin, go right ahead.
You're muted, sir. Paul, you're muted.
How about now?
That's better.
Yeah, and Paul, I think your letter, it was your letter to our board was quite instructive. If you could just follow that, it might be very helpful to this audience.
Sure, thank you. We're here, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. My name is Paul Cussin, principal of Delphic Associates, and we're meeting regarding to a development known as Parkside. The applicant is Perry Philip Woods, LLC, who received a special permit from the planning board in accordance with the town's inclusionary zoning bylaw. And what that zoning bylaw requires the developer to prepare an application and so forth, so that the town would have the opportunity to be able to add the affordable units onto the town subsidized housing inventory. In this particular development, according to the inclusionary zoning bylaw, 2 of the units that were approved have to be affordable. And the only way to do that is for the town to sign the application. Now, I understand there was a little bit of confusion at the last meeting regarding the local initiative program and the monitoring of the particular affordable units, et cetera. So your own bylaw, inclusionary zoning bylaw, refers to the local initiative program. So, and I included a copy of your bylaw in my letter that was submitted to the board dated November 10th. So in order to get those units added to the subsidized housing inventory, an application has to be made and a regulatory agreement has to be executed by the board in order to get those units added to the subsidized housing inventory. The units and attached to that regulatory agreement is also what's called a deed rider, which is attached to every single affordable unit that is sold to make sure that those units stay affordable in perpetuity, and in that when the existing buyer were to sell the affordable units, they have to notify the monitoring agent, which in this case is Executive Office of Communities and Livable Developments, that they plan on selling, and there's a particular process that they have to go to, and those units there again would be sold to another affordable buyer and subject to the same type of deed restriction. I'd be glad to answer, and so it's and without that, and it's the town's own bylaw, which some boards may not be familiar with, but that's the only way the units can get added to the subsidized housing inventory. So we request that the board sign the regulatory agreement, and be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Mike?
Just, this was a question or a comment that board member McNabb had. You refer to this as a LIP, but this was not something that was negotiated with the select board. It was negotiated with the planning board. So what makes this a LIP?
Your own bylaw.
Okay.
The special permit, and I attached it to the letter that I submitted. So your own inclusionary zoning, 560 inclusionary zoning, and if you look at 560.2 definitions, it talks, and this is your own bylaw, and it says that the affordable housing units, it talks about a dwelling unit that qualifies as a local initiative unit under the Commonwealth's local initiative program. So this is your own bylaw that talks about the LIP program.
I guess why wouldn't it come before the select board as an agreement we would negotiate with you as opposed to the planning board if it was under our bylaw?
Because the bylaw requires a special permit before we can even get to your board. The special permit is required from the planning board. These are your own bylaws.
And so I know the planning board's here too.
In order to get a permit, one does not go before the Board of Selectmen. Mm-hmm. One goes before the planning board. In the case of a 40, this is similar to 40B, but in similar 40B would be the Zoning Board of Appeals, even under the LIP program. So the regulatory agreement is sort of the last piece that gets discussed and executed. So we're just following your own bylaws.
Understand that, and I'm not the only person here, so I maybe someone else has some input too. But but I do want to say I appreciate my biggest concern. That was just something that board member McNabb raised, was this monitoring agent, and I just wanted to make sure the town wasn't going to be on the hook for a monitoring agent, because that has come up with other projects. But it sounds like the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities will be responsible for that.
That's correct. And in the regulatory agreement, it talks about that would occur, but it also discusses the regulatory agreement and the deed rider. There was a question about fees at the last meeting and so forth. So the fees for the monitoring actually through the deed rider is paid for by the new affordable buyer.
Okay, not the town.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
So
It is a little bit confusing, but
yeah, it's a little different than with how we've had. I mean, I think that benefits the town.
And it's not unusual. This is not the first time we've had discussions with a Board of Selectmen that aren't totally. It's not something that you do every day, and it's not something that some boards are not familiar with the details of the inclusionary zoning bylaw.
I think you can understand our confusion because we didn't negotiate the agreement, but we're told to sign it.
Yeah.
So that's.
It's not an agreement. It's not, it's a well, I guess it is. It's a regulatory agreement that keeps the units affordable.
Oh, I think that piece of it, I have no question about.
Okay.
Just the genesis of it was, I think, what troubled certain
Sure.
board members here.
Well, they're not here for this. We have the luxury of the planning director and the planning board. Is there anything you would like to add to this discussion while you're here? It's not required. Is there anything that we're missing that you would like to educate us about before we vote?
You have to go to the microphone.
Not for me, no. The legalities of LIP and SHI are sort of beyond my real expertise,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Would the planning board like to say anything about how this came to be?
Ms. Rapp?
Hi, I'm Kristen Rapp. I'm the chair of the planning board. We're a little fuzzy on this, but as I recall, we had some of the same similar questions because we felt it was odd that we were having this discussion when it was ultimately going to be the select board. But apparently that seems to be what's in the bylaws. We haven't had a thorough review, and I think that was actually something that we wanted to reach out to town council on. So maybe this is a good time to maybe make a change if there's some confusion.
You have reached out to town council, or you were going to reach out to town council?
That's what I'm fuzzy about. This was a while ago. I don't recall that whether or not we've reached out. I hadn't thought to check the notes before we came tonight. If you wanted to continue this, then we could dig into our meeting minutes and provide you some more information if that would help.
And it's not.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not the chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly, if you look at your own bylaw, and at the last meeting, it was requested, one of the board members said they were going to reach out to town council a couple of weeks ago. So that's why this meeting was put forward for 2 weeks. We're trying to get this resolved, and it's pretty clear. I don't know why people are so fuzzy, but if you look at 560 inclusion, it's the town's own bylaw, and it's the planning. I'm totally baffled as to the confusion. It's pretty straightforward and simple. I understand that people are not used to dealing with it every day, but there's a requirement that any development in the town of Duxbury that has more than, I think it's 10 units, that 10% of the units be affordable or designated as affordable through this process.
And you're confirming that's been done in this?
Yeah. And if the board is uncomfortable not signing it, that's okay too. They just won't get added to the subsidized housing inventory, and that's the whole goal of an inclusionary zoning bylaw.
Paul, I don't think you heard my question. I asked that you're confirming the process completed in accordance with the bylaw. Yes or no?
We couldn't hear that.
Are you confirming that the process was completed in accordance with our bylaw?
Yeah, the permit was issued and recorded.
Okay.
And it was the result of a comprehensive permit with the ZBA.
No, inclusionary zoning is not with the ZBA. Inclusionary zone is different. Under 40B, you would be dealing with the zoning board, but under the inclusionary zoning bylaw, the zoning board is not involved. It's just the planning board.
Okay. Did Amy Questle take a look at this from our?
She did, and there was a conversation between she and I and Judy Barrett and Amy McNabb, and the one point, the most salient point that Amy McNabb was emphatic about, she wanted to make sure, and she thought it was very important, that the minutes include that this is not a LIP project, and council did not protest that.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Amy McNabb is totally wrong. It's very clearly, can you just look up 560's, your own inclusionary zoning bylaw? I just read it.
Right.
560.2 definitions. Affordable housing units, a dwelling unit that qualifies as local initiative unit under the Commonwealth's local initiative program and meets the requirements of a subsidized housing unit for purpose of listing the subsidized housing inventory under GL and under 40B. I'm reading right from your own bylaw, 56.2, the definition. It's a local initiative program.
And
And Amy's been around long enough, well, I'm not going to say
I was
more. Go
also
ahead.
reading from something, and I hadn't quite finished, and council never.
Sorry.
That's okay. Council never protested what Amy had written. So when Amy McNabb said that she was emphatic that this be noted that it was not a lip, because that would imply that it was a partnership between the board and the developer, that just didn't happen, as Mr. McGee just told you.
Yes, and there is no partner. This is between you. The applicant does not appear before the Board of Selectmen for approval of the permit. The permit was issued by the planning board. So I've known Amy for a long time, and I respect her thoughts, and she's been involved in town politics for a long time, but in this particular case, she's not correct.
Well, her comments have just been noted by me, so that was what
Thank
she
you.
wanted, so I'm
All
here to
right,
deliver that.
So the point being is it's for our minutes this evening.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm looking to Nancy, and she's nodding that we have those included.
That's what
All
she
right,
had
Fernando.
asked.
No, I mean, I'm anyway, moving on.
All right, any other comments from the board?
I don't have any
Questions?
questions about the agreement itself.
Okay, we have a motion.
I move that the Select Board approves a regulatory agreement for property located at 0 Keene Street, known as Parkside, noting that this regulatory agreement is necessary in order to have the 2 affordable units count towards our SHI, subsidizing housing inventory. Since this development triggered the inclusionary bylaw and the applicant opted to build 2 units of affordable housing and to authorize the select board chair to execute as presented.
Any discussion on the motion? Here now, I'll call for the vote. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you,
you,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
At long last, we have a discussion pertaining to the comprehensive plan / Envision Duxbury document with the select board. This will be presented by, it says Planning Director Hines, but I see Chair Rapp is approached the podium. Ms. Rapp, please go right ahead.
Everyone, thank you. I'm Kristen Rapp from Ryan's Lane. 2 things. We do need to open. We have a quorum, a planning board quorum, so we do need to open here. So I'd like to call a motion to open the planning board. First, okay. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? We have to do a roll call vote, starting with Steve. Kristen Rapp, aye. Matt?
Matthew Ray, aye.
Thank you. All right, motion passes. Planning board meeting is open. All right, thank you. Good evening. This evening, the planning board would like to talk with you a little bit about our goals, and then we'd like to dive into and talk a little bit more extensively about the comprehensive plan. So first up, we have 4 short-term goals that we'd like to talk with you about. We'd like to talk, and then thereafter, we'd like to touch base quarterly, and then just continue to have conversation about our progress and assistance whenever that's needed. With the support of the select board in the town, we sponsored and gained approval on 3 bylaw amendments in 2025. We'd like to follow up on that momentum and bring 4 more bylaw amendments into town meeting in 2026. Our short-term goals are to prepare for these zoning bylaws amendments, and they are inclusionary housing bylaw, zoning bylaw recodification, floodplain zoning bylaw, and battery energy storage systems bylaw. So the first one, I just want to touch base, explain them so that you know what's coming. The first one is inclusionary bylaws we just discussed. One of the things that we've been working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, or MAPC, is to explore permitting greater density from developers in order to encourage them to build more affordable housing. Town Council has commented on our draft, and it's with MAPC now. The second thing, the zoning bylaw recodification. This has been a massive project for years. as Brian knows.
Finally getting there.
We're finally getting there. The basic objective of this is to create a more accessible version of the zoning bylaws right now. Right now, it's just one long PDF, and so the idea is that you'd actually be able to search. It'd be easier to find things, removing things around, putting definitions into one place, updating other definitions, and so on. We expect to have a final review from General Code by the end of November. And if that passes, then we would follow up with a deeper review of the bylaws themselves. We can talk about this discussion that we just had prior to this one. The third amendment would be a floodplain zoning bylaw, and this would update our current bylaw to follow the Massachusetts 2020 model floodplain bylaws. And our Coastal Resiliency Task Force has been the one that's been spearheading this behind the scenes, so we're very grateful to that. Right now, we've got a draft to town council who's advised that we need to hear from FEMA. FEMA, because of the government shutdown, has not been able to respond, so we're continuing to work on that. The last thing is the battery energy storage systems bylaw. It's come to our attention that that might be that it might be appropriate for us to propose a bylaw to work with this. So last week, town council provided us with an amendment that West Newbury recently passed, and along with the attorney general's opinion on it. So from that, we're still working on that, and we plan to have further discussion at the planning board meeting. All right, so you've got,
Kristen,
go ahead.
before you move on
Yeah.
the battery electric, that is a sensitive issue. Just to clarify, that there are regulations coming from the state.
Okay.
That's what's putting this in motion. It's so we can control, sort of like what we did with MBTA communities. It's something that the state is pushing down, and the purpose of the local regulation isn't necessarily to invite something, but to plan for it in the event that it does get pushed down to us.
Okay.
So I just want to make that clear to folks in town that we're not looking to revisit this sort of activity voluntarily.
Right.
So please go right ahead.
Yep. Okay. Great.
Christine, before you go, going back to the inclusionary housing bylaw.
Yep.
I didn't quite understand couldn't figure out, because Amy wasn't here, the implications of calling it LIP, not calling LIP. So is that's something that you'll figure that one out, right? So we don't have this this conversation again, right?
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. So going on to some longer term views, the board also sees some additional topics. The first at the top of the list is a comprehensive plan implementation. As we know, we did our master plan in 2019.
Yeah.
And from there, we came up with this massive implementation table. So in many towns, they do their comprehensive plan. It sits on a shelf, but our town, we really want to be able to act on it. But we need help. And so one of the first things we need is we would love for you to review the implementation table and give us your top priorities. And if you just want to send a memo or an email to our planning director, Matthew Hines, that would provide us with a little more guidance, because we haven't had a planning director in a while. That sort of sat on not the shelf, but on a desk waiting to be revisited. So we would appreciate your guidance. The second thing is that we also want to get an update from all the town departments, perhaps with some support from town manager, to figure out what exactly has been done at the town level and what else needs to remain so that we can work in partnership with those departments. And the third thing is that we do need assistance gathering information from our town volunteer group. So if you have additional advice on how to do that, that's welcome too. And then I'll continue on. We've got 4 more points, and I'll take some questions. So the second thing is coastal resiliency, and this is in partnership with the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. We're eager to support those efforts, which was chartered by the Select Board. Although they recently received a state grant for a comprehensive habitat restoration plan for the Upper Bluefish River, their funding and resources are otherwise limited. So we continue to advocate for an environmental or coastal planner to provide professional support for this group specifically in the town in general. And then the third thing is housing concerns raised in the comprehensive plan. We'd really like to address this with support and partnership with the Select Board, Livable, Duxbury Task Force, and Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust. And then the next one is we would like to continue to engage and communicate with the community. We used the Facebook page during the MBTA communities discussion, and we'll continue to do that. And then the last thing, as I mentioned, we would like to visit revising our zoning bylaw, because it's been a while, it's a little outdated, and we have some things that we need to add to that. So that's what we wanted to talk about with you tonight. Wanted to welcome any questions or feedback that you might have for us.
Just for the board.
4 short-term goals, are they, I mean, they're almost ready to go for,
They're almost ready to go. We've been meeting with town council. Matthew is going to be working with, is it Susan? On getting them into the warrants. So we might have some placeholders while we still wait on some language, but that is almost ready to go.
right, all right. Yeah, I mean, having sat on the planning board for 14 years while, you know, we decided to revise the zoning bylaw, and that's quite a while ago, but I was on there. Is there a plan in place to go forward with that? I mean, I know we've tried working with council, we've tried.
On revising the bylaw?
Uh-huh.
I think the idea is that we really wanted to reorganize the actual bylaw itself so that it was a little bit more, it was easier to handle, it was easier to work through. And then once we do that, then we'll be able to dig into it and figure out how do we do that? Do we need to have some small groups looking at different sections and basically create a program management plan for that? Because that will take some time. I'm hoping it doesn't take, what did you say, another 13 years? We're thinking more short term.
So the planning board is hoping to do that
That work,
themselves?
yeah, yes. Well, I think we've asked for some money for a consultant to provide some guidance. Right. $20,000, yeah,
A huge project,
it is.
so, okay.
Fernando, I'm just wondering, my experience at annual town meetings, whenever there's a zoning bylaw change come up on the agenda, it never seems to, it always seems to be IP'd because a bunch of people stand up and start poking holes on it. Obviously, zoning is really important that we get it right, so I can understand the passion by which people analyze and review the zoning and stand up and raise questions and try. Invariably, we end up trying to modify the zoning bylaw on the town floor, right? And you've been, well, we recognize that, right? So I'm just wondering, have you, as the planning board, put any thought into how do we engage with the community such that we kind of address these questions beforehand, such that we are a little bit more successful? These are really important that we get them approved, right? So what can we do? And maybe the select board can help as well to engage with the community to present the bylaws, present the language, and get folks up there to chew on it and provide us feedback before the annual town meeting.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We don't have a great history here, and so we really want to be able to communicate, engage the community so that they understand and we get their feedback and we make sure that we're partnering together. I think the work that we did on behalf of passing the MBTA communities bylaw and the ADU was really significant and helpful. There was a lot of outreach, a lot of meetings, a lot of public meetings. So our goal is to do that. When we get to actually, so those are the 4 short-term. Hopefully those are maybe easier to digest than the big zoning bylaw. When it comes to that, that's definitely going to take a little bit more figuring out. One idea was, but sometimes we come and we present this humongous document, here's what we want to pass. And that's a lot, right? So what if we were able to break it into little pieces and maybe it's a path forward, like, okay, here are 2 choices, A or B. Although I know we can't quite vote that way, but we're trying to think a little outside the box on that one. We're not to that step yet. But no, absolutely, I love your partnership. Any ideas that you have, any ways that we can communicate that would be greatly appreciated.
We're all on the same page. It will be a challenge, and what can we do to help pass it with support of the town, right?
On the floodplain zoning bylaw, do you anticipate that that's going to be an add-on to wetland protection, for example, or is that going to be a standalone, or how do you envision that happening?
I think,
Just
Matthew,
curious.
is that a repeal and replace? Okay. Yep. Oh, yeah.
So Matthew Hunch, Planning Director. It's not repeal and replace. It's actually just a few minor changes, primarily recommended by Lenore White of the Coastal Resiliency Task Force, who has a lot of expertise in that. I don't think it connects to wetlands. I'm not sure, but I think because it's floodplains, it's technically conceptually it's a different thing. Although of course they seem to overlap. So it's just some things, some verbiage, some changes to the language that I think will put us more in conformance with, I can't remember if it's federal or state guidelines. I know Lenore explained it to us. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, but it's not a major change.
Comprehensive plan implementation, Kristen, I think I heard you say one of the things that would be helpful to the planning board is aligning the select board's goals with the many
Right.
goals under the comprehensive plan. My suggestion there, Rainey, I'll look to you, or maybe Nancy, if you can share the voted upon select board goals with Matthew to give him a flavor as to what our goals are. And from there, Matt, I think you'll be able to identify individual goals within the comprehensive plan that align with what the select board has identified as overall goals. That would be my suggestion, unless somebody's got a, Mike.
The only other add, if you want to bore into the details, I don't think we're blowing the dust off on this a little bit, just to, but we started this process, 2 years ago when we had a planner. We took kind of a pause when we didn't have a planner. All of the boards and all of the committees had a spreadsheet with drop-down boxes. I can remember TAG in the Historical Commission was making it an agenda item on every meeting about how are we meeting the goals of the comprehensive plan. I think a lot of work was done. It just kind of got shelved for about a year and a half. So I think that's something, if we want to reignite this, to share with everybody and say, we're starting this up again. We have a planner in place. I don't know if Matt's seen it even, but that went out to everybody.
I sent it to Matt, and he has it.
So, I mean, I think that's a really good place to start, too. And
I sent it to you guys, too, didn't I?
yeah, and
Okay. What?
it's been a couple of years, and it just kind of stopped. But I think all the committees and boards were looking at it and saying, what can we knock off here for no money at all? What are bigger long-term plans that we need the select board approval for? I think we should start doing that again to kind of tee that up. Right.
Okay, that's a good segue. That's going to be my next comment. I heard you ask that you need some support from us to push back to the boards and committees that we liaise with, and we're happy to do that. But, Mike, I think you make a good point about putting out the call, so to speak, generally, that this is something that we've got a planning director, full-time, permanent, and that this has never not been important to the town. It's always been on our radar. But now that we've got the horsepower internally to pick this back up, that we expect the boards and committees to basically pick up where they left off. And I think, speaking for myself, and I'm sure my colleagues agree, that as we meet with our boards and committees, that's something that we can emphasize. But that's separate from your request of what are the sort of top level things that you want to jump on first. And to that, I would defer again to our previously voted upon list of goals. All right. And then I think the other piece that would be important for the planning board is to have the support generally of the select board of the goals that you've just outlined. So I don't think we have a formal motion, but I think by acclamation, we would be comfortable supporting these goals or these priorities as being something that's important to the select board as well. Mike?
Can I just ask a question? Well, there's some planning board. Your short-term goals, we've been hearing that there's a revenue issue here in town. Has there been any discussion about revisiting any bylaws with respect to short-term rentals or ADUs and generating revenue for the town at all? Has anybody kicked that tire at all?
That's,
Because I thought that somebody on the planning board had brought that up and that it was, maybe I'm wrong on that.
We now have ADUs are allowed in town.
Right.
And so those rentals must be 30 days or more. So when we
Right.
say short term, it would be 1 month or more.
Right.
So I think it's really up to the town to figure out how are they going to capture. If I have an ADU and I rent it out to somebody for a month, how does the town capture that?
Right.
I don't think that's really, sure, please, please.
I mean, I guess just on a sort of a related note, I mean, as far as, the revenue situation, obviously, Duxbury has, very, very little commercial land uses. And so the residents of Duxbury spend so much of their shopping dollars in Kingston and Marshfield and Pembroke and Hanover and Plymouth and so forth. At this point, obviously, Duxbury's, largely built up. It would be difficult to put in much commercial, and there'd probably be, tremendous sort of resistance. But maybe there are ways to kind of tweak things or gradually to add a little bit more commercial land use in a way that sort of is amenable to the residents, which might kind of gradually help the town's financial situation. Help the tax base so a little bit.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about commercial. Yeah, I was just. Yeah, go ahead, Tag.
Pat Carpenter, Summer Street. I spoke with Mary McKinnon about this over a year ago now. And, we're working with soft numbers. A lot of it's kind of off the book, as you know.
Yeah.
But there are fewer than 100, as we estimate, short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And just based on a simple model of using the allowable tax revenue and adding some transition fees, because you can do that every time a STR turns over, you can put a fee on it to deal with the, additional stress on the streets. The sort of back of the envelope conclusion was that there would need to be several hundred STRs in active use in order for it to have any measurable budget impact.
Okay.
So just that was kind of the rough picture that we saw. Mass.
Got it. All right. Not an issue now.
Thank you,
Okay,
Tag.
thank you.
Any other questions?
And the other, okay, and the last comment I had was meeting quarterly, I think, is a terrific idea.
Yep.
And especially where we're re-engaging on a comprehensive plan, it definitely needs to come back to us, not for oversight, but so that we can continue to provide the support across the entire community as is necessary to make these happen. Cindy?
Yeah. Two things. One, if we're going to be contacting our town committees that we're liaison, it would be useful to know what their list of is that on that document?
Yes,
I'm
it
not-
is.
Mm-hmm.
Every,
Okay.
every
All right.
board committee's got a tab.
Great.
Yep.
I spent a few years since I
Thank you,
looked
Chris
at it.
Ryan.
I know,
For that
really.
and many things.
I know, right. And the other thing, can you just briefly, we have just talked about the inclusionary bylaw a few minutes ago. And can you tell me a little bit about what the intention is for?
Sure. So let's think of, if we have a subdivision of 6 houses or more, so let's just for the sake of simplicity, say we have 10 houses. We have 10 acres, we have 10 acres, we can build 10 houses, right? One house per acre. With inclusionary housing, right now, we could say to the builder, we'll allow you to build 12 houses on 10 acres if you set aside, say, two other houses for affordable housing. It's an incentive for a builder to add on more affordable houses in their development. The idea being by adding a little bit more density than our zoning typically allows for right now. That would be what the change would be. It's a little more but that's kind of very roughly. That's the idea.
Or what's it, contribute $1 million, right? There's a financial.
They could either
There
do
could be
more
an in
housing
lieu
or they
of,
could,
yep, there could
or they
be.
could buy.
But not a
That's another
change.
option.
No,
All right, any,
Increasing the density would be.
yes.
All right, anything else from the board?
No, I want to echo, I think Fernando's point is a good one. If you can use our meetings and have a joint meeting to flush some of these bylaws out so that the public can have some input, I think that would be great to do before town. Yeah.
Is there anything else we can do for the planning board this evening?
no, I wanted to introduce Matthew Hines. I'm not sure if he's actually had the pleasure of
We-
being.
we- We've had the pleasure of meeting him quite a few
acknowledged here.
times.
So I
Keeping
don't know,
him busy.
Matthew, I'm going to totally put you on the spot. Is there anything you'd like to talk about or say with as far as like the comprehensive plan or what we're doing or anything like that?
I think for now you've covered it.
Okay, all right. Sorry, we didn't realize that he was on the agenda. We didn't mean to flip-flop that and confuse you. Sorry
Oh,
about
it's quite
that.
all right.
But I think it's a good idea. Shall we, how can we go ahead and just reaffirm that we support both the short-term, long-term, and the next steps.
I
of
think
the,
our minutes can reflect that we endorse it by acclamation.
Yep, okay,
Great,
good.
thank you.
Thank you very much,
Right.
Kristen.
And then I'd move to close the
Board.
planning board meeting. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll start with Matt Ray,
We have some
our
questions.
voice call. What?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
yes,
hold
Kathy.
on, we have a question.
Kathy Cross, Chair of the Open Space Committee.
Hi, Kathy Cross, on 94 Baby Road. So I had a couple of questions. I'm on a couple of committees, in case people don't know that, but, but anyway, we've gone through the exercise of going through the implementation plan by committee. And I don't know if those changes have been reflected, but some of them we reassigned to other committees. So I don't know, that might be an exercise you may want to do before we re-engage with committees. Just a suggestion. And then, as you know, we're updating the open space and recreation plan. So are we going to update Chapter 4 in the comprehensive plan, or is that, like, how does that work?
I would defer to Matthew on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is probably not at this time as far as updating Chapter 4. Eventually the planning board will have to decide, whether to do a new comprehensive plan at some point in time, whether, 5 or 10 years down the road, or to maybe just update certain chapters. But I think at least in the foreseeable future, I don't think we'd be updating Chapter 4. But I think, the other plans that are out there, the one that you mentioned also, hazard mitigation plan and various other ones, the OSRP, all of those are really valuable, as well. And they all kind of interconnect to some extent with planning and vice versa. So, yeah, I guess that would be my kind of short answer to that.
Your question, Kath? Okay, great. I see Bree Ling has her hand up. Bree, go right ahead.
You muted, Bree. There you go.
Hi guys, how you doing? I'm hiding from the bird. I just wanted to ask a quick question on the inclusionary with the example of the 10 houses, where we could say, okay, well, you can build 2 more if you have them affordable. Could we say, like, well, we'll give you this much money and you can have 2 of the 10 instead of having 12? So that we aren't adding to the number of units they were going to build. We're just changing how many are affordable. Does that make sense? Do you follow?
Question, I think that might be too early to say. We're still working out the details on that.
Oh, yeah, okay. I just wanted to throw that out there as a member of the CPC and as the Housing Authority and the Affordable Housing Trust. I just wanted to put that out there because we do have money to offer contractors if they'd be willing to take that and choose to do affordable housing in some of their 40B options. It's just an option out there. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public? Mr. Baldwin?
On Baldwin High Street, 110 High Street. I could have sworn when there were 3 selectmen, we had an article that went before town meeting for to get $75,000 for to redo the zoning. You remember that at all? Randy? Any idea if there's did we spend it all? Is it hiding out someplace at the treasurer's office?
Yeah, that's what we do. We hide the money in the treasurer's office. If that's the case, I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'll look. That sounds vaguely familiar to me, John. I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, she's talking about needing 20,000. Maybe there is a certain amount of money there.
I don't know if that article ever went forward or whether it landed in Capital Light as a standalone article. So I'll have to take a look.
No idea. It's a long time ago.
It was.
Thank you for raising that. Any other comments?
No, I had a similar thought because I could have sworn we asked for some money even in the last 4 years. I just wanted to make sure that we've used it in the right way.
I wonder if that went to some of the work on the recodification. I don't know.
Maybe.
We can
Yeah,
look into that.
All right, we will get to the bottom of it.
Okay, thanks. I think the planning board just needs to vote to close their.
Right ahead. Yep.
All right, so we'll call for a roll call vote to close the planning board meeting. Matthew, starting with you.
Matthew Ray, aye.
Kristen Rapp, aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate all your help, all your hard work. Next is discussion with Bay Management Commission regarding State of the Bay 2025 report, and this will be presented by Peter Quigley.
Hey everyone, Peter Quigley, Long Point Lane. Nancy, do you have a slide deck you could pull up?
Right there.
Perfect. So this is a 100% volunteer effort. About a year ago on the Bay Management Commission, there was community feedback that there were changes happening in the water quality in Duxbury Bay that were concerning. And the last State of the Bay report was in 2009, so it was 15 years ago. So what I wanted to say before I started, the way we accomplished this, we produced a very comprehensive update. It took many hands to pull this off. So I just wanted to recognize John Lovett, who is our current chair, and Joe Messina, our past chair. The executive summary and the key findings. So in preparing this report, we wanted to break it down in a way that the community could understand, and you didn't have to read a really 150-page document to take away the key findings. So the whole committee focused on the key findings and the executive summary. We contracted a water quality expert to analyze the data properly. It took someone who had the necessary technical expertise. We were lucky enough to hire John Brawley, who was a former resident of Duxbury, as a PhD. He's on the faculty at UVM as a subject matter expert. So in part, the reason I want to attribute ownership, if you will, to the various sections of this report. So if the members of the select board or members of the community have interest and have follow-up questions, these are the people that would be important for you to reach out and contact. Bacteria and pathogens. So both the state requires bathing beaches to be monitored by the Board of Health, and the Department of Marine Fisheries requires periodic testing for pathogens in the oyster farms. John McGrath coordinated that. Eelgrass habitat, Rich Kleiman, who's here. Duxbury Beach, there's a comprehensive update in this report. Chris Latazzi and one of her team, Joey Negrian, prepared the material from the Duxbury Beach. Recreational and commercial shellfishing, John McGrath. Invasive species, also John McGrath, he was very eager. Recreational and boating, Mackenzie Thompson from DBMS, Dax Gunther and J.R. Kent coordinated pulling that material together. Aquaculture was Skip Bennett and John Lovett. Recreational fishing, John Lovett, and sea level rise was sort of a committee effort. So I just wanted to make people understand this is not an individual person's effort. It was really a group of volunteers plus a contracted subject matter expert. So if you want to go to the next slide. So really at a high level, I'm going to touch upon the various sections of the report, and I'm going to spend more time specifically focusing on water quality. I think if all of us can agree how vital Duxbury is to our community. There's been a lot of growth in the last 15 years, both recreational and commercial growth. Just to give you an idea, DBMS has grown by 40%. In 2025, we have 350 residents waiting for moorings on the flats. 2009, you could get a flats mooring tomorrow, right? There is no waiting list. So it gives you a sense of how recreational boating has expanded. 2024, 12 million oysters were harvested from Duxbury Bay, a 300% increase since 2006 or 2009. And you can see just by being around Duxbury Bay, the number of people that are accessing it. So there's been a tremendous growth of people accessing the bay, and that's really kind of at the core of DBMS's mission, is to connect people to Duxbury Bay. I think on Duxbury Beach, the challenges for Duxbury Beach are increasing. Trying to balance recreational preservation, conservation, and protection. Without Duxbury Beach, a lot of Duxbury will look very different if it wasn't there as a barrier beach. Okay, Nancy? The oyster industry that was pioneered really in Duxbury and in Wellfleet has expanded nationally. And one of the things that's, quite remarkable is the price of oysters to a grower has essentially, and Greg can attest to this, has essentially remained flat in the last 15 years. So you can imagine a business with increasing competition and prices are flat is putting a lot of financial pressure on our aquaculture industry. Of course, it's farming. You're subject to pathogens, you're subject to weather, climate, disease, but it's an industry overall that continues to thrive in Duxbury and has got a national reputation, if not beyond. Pathogens. Overall, the water quality in Duxbury is very good. There's extensive amount of pathogen testing, and I would say the one qualifier is if there's an extended period of dry weather followed by heavy rain, all of the stuff that's on the ground, whether it's animal waste, birds, or human waste, ends up in the bay. So it's not a coincidence that testing is generally very good unless there's been an event, and we've had some of those events, increasingly droughts followed by heavy precipitation, and that can impact bathing beach access as well as the oyster fishery. Last, and is there the ecosystem of Duxbury Bay is changing. There's more species that didn't exist in Duxbury 20 years ago. There's also species migration in Cape Cod Bay, stuff that didn't used to be here is now here. And we're seeing some of that. In particular, green crabs is something you'll hear about. I heard from Chris Latazzi, who is the executive director of the Duxbury Beach Reservation. They did an underwater survey with video, and I haven't seen it, but she said all you could see was green crabs and it looked like a horror movie. You couldn't see any other living creature. And they have some really particularly damaging impacts. People may have seen them on the menu at the Windsor House. There's a small fishery that's emerging to try and deal with the green crabs. People are trying to eat them. But it's an example of how, as the marine environment changes, things can change in Duxbury Bay that can have a spill-on effect, and in many ways can be very negative. Okay, so this is a canary in the coal mine type scenario, and some of you have heard about this, but by Mass DEP, and we have Alex Mansfield from Mass Bays here in the North and South River watershed. He could answer any questions you have about this, but there's been a massive eelgrass die-off, say in the last 10 to 25 years. Depending on how you measure it, the die-off could be, 3/4 or more. And there are a number of factors that can contribute to the loss of eelgrass, but it has a really negative impact for the ecology, for small fish. It absorbs nutrients when it grows, so it improves water clarity. And there have been efforts in the past to do eelgrass restoration. So far, they've been unsuccessful, but there's been a lot of innovation in the Chesapeake Bay, and I think the North and South River watershed has recently been awarded a grant. They've gotten support from DVMS and Mass Bays and Island Creek to try and support, and others if I left someone off. There's going to be quite a concerted effort to see if we can do eelgrass remediation in Duxbury Bay. Okay. This is where I think we are very fortunate that we identified and actually were able to analyze more than 15 years of high quality data taken in Duxbury, Kingston, and Plymouth Bays, none of it undertaken by any Duxbury organization. It was all done by organizations outside of Duxbury. The Mass DEP and Mass Bays started, I think, as early as 2006. And then, of all things, the Center for Coastal Studies in Provincetown, Mass, has carried on biweekly water quality testing in Duxbury, Kingston, and Plymouth Bay since 2015. And the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension has a continuous measurement system that has been on Greg Morris's oyster lease for about 10 years. All of that program is vulnerable to discontinuation because the funding is now coming from the Cape as opposed to from the state. And fortunately, DBMS has put their toe in the water. They've started to engage in supporting these testing programs using the infrastructure that they have. They have some expertise with marine science and education. DBMS has 2 real-time water quality measurement systems that they've acquired. So I think DBMS is well positioned to sort of ensure that we have data that we can rely upon as we look ahead to see what things can be done to try and improve things going forward. A couple of things I think are noteworthy. We can't really control temperature, and we can't really see an average increase like you hear about in the Gulf of Maine or in Cape Cod Bay. But what we are seeing is there are episodes inside of Duxbury Bay of extremely warm water that's increasing in frequency. So going back maybe 10 or more years, there would be very few number of days where you had at least an hour with the water temperature above 25 degrees C, which is 77 Fahrenheit, like bath water. Those events are increasing in frequency. So in the last 5 or more years, there's an increasing trend where we have periods of extremely warm water. That warm water is contributes to, again, very harmful effects. Even if it's temporary, it can deplete oxygen, it can kill, fish fry, it can damage eelgrass, etc. Dissolved oxygen is the thing that keeps all the fish and the other animals alive. So when you have events where there's very low oxygen, it's also very harmful. Chlorophyll and turbidity, and I'll talk more about the effect of chlorophyll, because when you get too much growth of plant growth, it actually has the effect of when it decomposes, it absorbs oxygen and depletes the oxygen. And you'll see in these next slides, we're trending towards, okay, so this is, I think, a great graphic, and this is from the Mass DEP study that was done in 2017. I'm not a subject matter expert, so when I started this, my impression was, Kingston and Plymouth might in some ways be worse off than Duxbury because of the degree of development there. And I'll talk about the sources of the nitrogen, which is accelerating plant growth that's harmful. And in fact, it's just the opposite, that Kingston and Plymouth has the benefit that deep blue water is Cape Cod Bay. And over the last 15-year time period, the water quality from a nitrogen standpoint has been very stable in Cape Cod Bay. Plymouth and Kingston, except for the very upper reaches of the Jones River and the very upper reaches of Plymouth Harbor, get the benefit of much more water exchange than Duxbury. The green is not good. So green in many graphics is good. Green in this case is not good. That's an indication of excess plant growth. If you drew a line from the Harbor Master's Dock to High Pines, all of Duxbury Bay north of that is got water quality which is becoming impaired. So it's really most of Duxbury Bay, which is really, I think, a very sobering finding. And it was actually reflected in both modeling and early measurement data going back to 2017. We've confirmed that. Where does nitrogen come from? And I'll talk about what is nitrogen in a moment, but it's the man-made nitrogen comes primarily from septic systems and excess use of fertilizer.
Important, right? So it's nitrogen that's causing this. The green is excessive or high nitrogen concentration.
Exactly. Right? It stimulates, microscopic plant growth, and it stimulates algae growth, and that stuff when it decomposes, it absorbs oxygen, but it chokes off essentially the life that we want to have in Duxbury Bay. Alex, that wasn't a very technical, how,
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you basically have bacteria breaking down the plant matter that sucks oxygen out of the water. And also, I just have Peter since I'm talking anyway.
Do you
all
mind
that-
just coming to the microphone so that people listening can hear you?
you got a good voice for it.
Yeah, just echoing what Peter was saying about impacts of high nitrogen creating plankton growth, which then when that decomposes, you have bacterial decomposition, which chews up the oxygen, but also, maybe you were going to mention this, but all that plankton in the water is also shading the bottom. So things like eelgrass and plants that you do want to grow are shaded up. Happy to jump back whenever.
Thank you.
This is the low point on the pitch, because I'm going to talk about what we can do about it towards the end, so don't get depressed. But we really have to pay attention.
I think the key message is we have a problem.
We do.
We have a problem.
And the data confirms it. In this next slide, I think, Fernando, this gets to what is this? Because you can use a term like pollution, like nitrogen pollution, which the state does.
Yeah.
You can use excess nutrients. You can use excess nitrogen. I want to be really clear. Nitrogen is an essential element for life. It's not like having PCBs in Duxbury Bay. So when you hear the word pollution, I want people to really understand this is not about like chemical pollution that's going to make you sick. It's like we put too much fertilizer in the water and we're making plants grow that shouldn't be there. So if you look at what nitrogen is, it's the majority of the air we breathe. It's like 80% of the air. And plants can't grow without nitrogen. But what's happening because of septic systems, which Duxbury has everywhere, and fertilizer, but it's really septic systems. That's the issue. I don't want to, like fertilizer is easier to fix than septic systems, but that's the human caused runoff. We don't have a big agricultural sector. The cranberry industry, we have a very active agricultural committee in Duxbury, even though we don't have huge amount of agricultural acreage. They're very regulated about the amount of fertilizers and or pesticides or herbicides that are used. That's been something that's not an issue in Duxbury, but septic systems and fertilizer is. This is an image from the Buzzards Bay Coalition that's been, I'd say, 35 years ahead on this, because this problem manifested itself on the communities in proximity to Buzzards Bay before it's really been appearing here. But sadly, we're seeing some of this type of growth on the flats in Duxbury now. Those of you that are oyster farmers, or if you're active on boating, you'll notice on the flats at low tide, significant percentage of the flats in Duxbury are green. They didn't used to be, like as recently as 5 years ago. This is a fairly extreme where you have the algae on the surface, but we have it on the flats. And I'll just do a small anecdote. There was an oyster farm that was owned by Charlie White that my son worked on for 4 years. And it was transferred to a new owner. And I was talking to that owner, and it's sort of north, if you were looking at that line, it's in that green area that I showed and I illustrated, and they said it's almost impossible to farm on that lease because of so much algae growth on the oyster gear. So it's like, okay, that's a direct, like less than 10-year experience where in that location, something has significantly changed. So is that, I want to just stop there. I have some more slides, but if people have questions, I don't want to be an alarmist. This is not going to make you sick. It's just too much plant growth in Duxbury Bay.
I just of note, and I brought this up when we talked about PFAS, and I kind of remember the presentation when we did the tables about where the water's going, and if we push the two together, there was a lot of that, the high PFAS levels that we were seeing around Hall's Corner and places like the water flow is heading to the Bluefish River. I really, I think as a board, I think we need to start thinking about it as water commissioners and about addressing the septic issue, because I don't know how we can, but I'd like to explore it with our, whether it's encouraging or providing incentives to clean out their septic tanks. But the two issues seem to be very closely intertwined.
You're dead on, Mike. And the great thing I would say about this subject, there are so many of our existing town committees, from the Town Water and Sewer, the Agricultural Commission, the Shellfish Advisory, obviously the Bay Management Commission, the Board of Health, the Conservation Commission, there's the Duxbury Beach Reservation. There's so many organizations that are starting to become energized. And the next two slides, Mike, I think is going to address what I think the next steps are.
Great.
And I also want to share what other towns are doing, because we're not ahead on this. This, I just want to say, is a train is going to come to Duxbury, and it's a matter of time. And that train is driven by thresholds that are established by the Mass DEP that determine when nitrogen levels in marine environments exceed healthy thresholds. And at that point, they can impose restrictions on septic systems, restrictions on development, and they're already doing it, right? In July 2013, every town on the Cape is now affected by at least some portion of their communities being designated as nitrogen-sensitive areas. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means. But that dotted line, now the thing that's interesting here is that the enforcement can't come until the thresholds are accepted by the EPA. So that dotted line on the chart is a draft threshold from the study that was done in 2017. At some point, the EPA will certify that as being approved. It's 8 years later. I don't know if it's going to happen in the next time period, but if that line were a EPA mandated or Mass DEP mandated threshold, all of our water in that green area in Duxbury Bay is at or above the threshold, right? So action would be imposed upon the town to take remedial action. And I can share what some of those are. Did I say that properly? Yeah. So this is what they think it should be. It's not an official policy. It was on the basis of a very, very extensive report done in 2017. We're way above it in the Bluefish. We're well above it in the outflow coming from the back river below the Powder Point Bridge, and we're now at it or above it at the Harbor Master Dock. And the trends, the blue.
Sorry, you can't see the very top line. That's the blue.
That's the Bluefish.
That's the Bluefish, and then the line below it is
It's the Powder Point Bridge, the
Powder
outflow.
Point Bridge. And then lastly is the dock.
Harbor,
and then,
Harbor Master Dock.
Harbor Master. So in 2022, it reached that limit.
That's right.
Okay.
And the trend is bad. Like the Bluefish is so high, and the data's only been there since 2015. We have
Right.
less data, but it's way high. But the other, you can see if you were to put a line through there, there's an upward slope. It's getting worse.
Yes.
So in that water quality report, the section of the State of the Bay 2025, there's essentially 40 pages of rigorous technical breakdown.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the takeaway chart right there, is
Right.
saying that the three key measurements that we have extensive amount of data, we're at or above where we need to be.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then the next, this is I think this is instructive. What are other towns doing? And one of the most remarkable things I learned, and I said, if anyone is interested in the subject, to me, the Buzzards Bay Coalition sort of set the standard of citizen science, community engagement, and driving action to reverse these trends. I mean, it's really an incredible organization. The 2013, Wareham is not an affluent community. It's not particularly, I'll just leave it at that, right? That you wouldn't think of them as being an environmental leader, given the resources in the town. In 2013, you cannot build a septic system within 150 feet of the water in the town of Wareham. You cannot build a septic system, you can't replace a failed system within 500 feet of the water without nitrogen removal. And it's amazing to think that was 2013, right? Other towns are doing the same thing, and in fact, this state DEP nitrogen-sensitive area designation requires nitrogen removal in all septic systems, and there's no grandfathering. It's just a matter of time. Every single septic system in the community has to be updated. It's not cheap, but that's the alternative that is being imposed on a number of towns already in the Commonwealth, including every single town on the Cape. So nitrogen banned all fertilizer use in 2022. Many, many towns, and I shared that with you when I gave a presentation like 18 months ago. Many towns have seasonal bans, limitations on fertilizer use, but really the issue that the town has to grapple with is the conventional Title V septic system doesn't remove nitrogen. And for example, the Snug Harbor shared system is a shared giant septic system that's right on top of the Bluefish, right? It doesn't have any nitrogen removal as an example. The town does have a water treatment plant. It's underutilized. When I talked to DPW, they said there's 30,000 gallon a day capacity. They can remove nitrogen at the water treatment plant. During the school year, they're averaging about 4,500 gallons a day. So we might have 90% capacity available at the water treatment, but to get serious, the town's going to have to recognize that septic systems that don't treat nitrogen, especially in the Bluefish and the Back River watersheds, further south in the community, out as you get out to other parts of the community that are you get more exchange from Cape Cod Bay. So this is not a town-wide issue, but those two watersheds in particular, I think, are going to need some remedial action. That makes sense. I'll pause, and then I have some next steps, but that's, yeah.
Just that the Wareham, if they prohibit new septic systems, what do they do in lieu of that?
Well, so you have to put a tight tank. If you're going to build a house and you're going to have to, let's say you don't have the property, like some of the lots would be a lot smaller, tight tank, or you can't develop it. And that's
how you would ever do that.
Well, they did it 12 years ago. I mean, that's how bad the issue became in the estuaries in Wareham, and they've made a big difference. Like the water quality, I think, is markedly improved. So, yeah, but no, this is all, and again, I think Duxbury, because of the benefit of Cape Cod Bay, Buzzards Bay doesn't get nearly the exchange of cold water that we get, but, the train is on the track, I would say. It is a matter of time. It could be 50 years, it could be 10, but it's probably somewhere in between there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the towns that have done fertilizer bans. All fertilizer for 3 years. Is there any data showing the benefit to them? Or?
Well, yeah, so what they also have done is they put septic inspection and upgrade. They're not just doing the fertilizer on its own, they're also tackling the septic system. And they have a lot of resources in Nantucket, and they also have a lot of people that live there that don't have the resources. So I think they're trying to do a bit of both. But for agricultural use, which is limited, but there's no personal, residential, town property fertilizer use permitted on the island at all. So I don't know what the effect is. If anyone's heard anecdotally what the effects have been, Mike.
Well, one of the things that
You need to go to the microphone.
See, that's what happens when you talk.
Fernando's been trying to get me to calm down. Mike Herlihy, 56 St. George.
One of the things they've done is they've done work with all the landscaping outfits and almost, I don't know if they've gone as far as licensed them, but had them, sign up to certain procedures and standards and that type of thing. So there's a big, wide program out there, and there are people out there, we could exchange information with. I could put you in touch.
Inventing the wheel.
Oh, well, they started quite a while ago, and the ponds over there, it's a real problem. Go over there just to get more conviction to do it.
Don't sit down, Mike. Mike, don't sit down, because I have a question for you. Because I know you're familiar with Nantucket, but go ahead, Cindy.
I just want to, just my last
I'm
comment.
sorry.
It's not really a question for you, I'm sorry, it's just my thought, that banning fertilizer use, I've got one right here, is cheap money, so to speak, compared to septic system work. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Banning is probably not a good word to, start the word with, but standards and adhering to best practices, going in with that kind of and then, showing them, well, if you do this, you get some results.
So, Mike, if, just adding to that, or tailing on the comment about educating the landscapers and that sort of thing, which I know, Peter, you're proposing, or you guys are doing in Duxbury as well. But how does Nantucket, to the extent, I'm going to ask you directly because I know you're familiar with stuff out there, how do they enforce the ban? So, you're following somebody to Lowe's and, seeing what they put in their cart. I mean, I can't imagine you get to that level. So is it, practically speaking, how is that enforced? Is it through education?
Education and sort of community value building, and you have to trust people to do what they say they're going to do, and a certain percentage of them are, really care about the place and do that, and some don't, and some people are, pressed into doing what they don't want to do by people with a lot of money. I mean, there's a lot of reality to the thing, but not getting started doesn't change the ethos of the place. You got to get started, and
Right.
Get people. We get a few people, not many, like Peter, that really care about all this stuff.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, so I have two more slides, and the best for last. So this next is a map, and the color doesn't come quite through. You have a copy of the presentation. The green are these areas that in July 2023, these new regulations went in effect. So every town on the Cape is affected. Not every town has the whole town affected, right? So it's an assessment of where the sources are and where the water, the water flow is that impair the coastal marshes and estuaries. It's a big, if you read what these requirements are, all new construction has to have nitrogen removal. I've reached out to Freeman, who's our town expert on septic system construction. I think he's better positioned to say, has he built them in Duxbury and how much more do they cost? But they cost a lot more. They're not as cheap as a standard Title V. And I think this last thing is something that people always talk about. Well, it's been in my family for 75 years and what have you. Well, that's not happening in these nitrogen sensitive areas. All septic systems will be upgraded, and it's just a question of time. And I'm not 100% familiar, but it's a pretty heavy hand, Mike, that is on the homeowner. And there are lots of grants, like the town of West Falmouth is providing grants to homeowners, and there's, I'm sure, state and federal support, but it's as opposed to a town which is sewerage. This is a homeowner burden to upgrade to meet what could be in the future a state requirement. So that's the lay of the land there. I focused on water quality. There's a lot of really substantial material in that report that if any of you are interested in, and the various people that I mentioned that took the lead on these sections, I'm sure they'd love to hear from you or anyone in the community. Please reach out to those people. This last is a very specific, here's what I recommend, and this is a consensus on our committee. The first thing is to not guess, because we had the benefit of really high quality, high integrity data that we could draw these conclusions from. The most important thing we need to do is to identify the sources and the estimated volumes of contribution, particularly the Bluefish and the Back River watersheds. I think there's town organizations. I think the Board of Health, I think the Conservation Commission, which is a combo of volunteers and staff. And I think there are other volunteer organizations that can assist the town in doing this. I don't know what this entails. Alex might, but I think doing a source assessment to identify the mix of contribution to the Bluefish River is an example of fertilizer versus septic, same on the Back River. That's kind of first and foremost. We have to do the best we can to assess where the problem is coming from. Then ultimately you have to decide what are the low-hanging fruit, what are the cost benefits, and try and tackle the stuff that can have the biggest impact at the lowest cost.
Essentially, you're trying to figure out the ownership of the nitrogen, right? Yep. So can you differentiate between nitrogen that comes from a fertilizer versus nitrogen that comes from a septic system? Or is it all the same stuff?
I think the Board of Health people, when I've had some conversations with people, they can visually detect when septic systems are not performing based on the plant growth. So they can actually walk around the watershed and actually make an assessment if a septic system is performing. So that on the septic system side. I think on the fertilizer side, you have to look at the big open tracts of land and try and identify how much does the town use on the North Hills Golf Course? How much does the Duxbury Yacht Club use on the Duxbury Yacht Club Golf Course? How much is used on the school playing fields? Those are pounds. Those, like, you can get numbers. You can get the schools supply 3 tons of fertilizer every spring and fall, whatever. I think we can get those big assessments much harder to do on an individual homeowner basis. Right. But I think the septic systems, Fernando, I think people that know more than I do have a way to start to identify what are the likely causes. I can say, without being an expert, I think the shared septic system or the shared system for Snug Harbor is probably, and again, this is pure speculation. Right. I think it's probably in a really bad place because it's a giant leaching field right on top of the Bluefish River. So that's an example. I don't know, but we can analyze how many gallons of waste are going into a leaching field that's right on top of the Bluefish River.
Right.
Awarded a grant to study the water quality, specifically in the upper Bluefish River Basin.
Yes.
And that's sort of Harrison Street up, not looking at the septic system that's sitting on top, but it's a start.
Oh, it's a great opportunity to collaborate for sure. Yeah. Because it's really, the watershed goes way farther away than the Bluefish River than you think. So that's exactly, they're working on in a very important part of the challenge, which is that upstream of that Harrison Street watershed.
That's starting. I mean, it's, in the works.
So that kind of makes sense, and I think we will, like the Bay Management Commission, and we'll speak to the coastal resiliency, try and come up with a game plan. How do we do this? But I think that's first and foremost. In parallel, we don't want to wait because there's some things that can be done that can make a positive improvement. And just to give you an idea, the 12 million oysters that were harvested in 2024, they have the equivalent of removing the waste of about 1,000 residents from the town of Duxbury. So the oysters are feeding upon the organisms. We need actually more shellfish, really, as opposed as a potential solution. And there are places, including New York Harbor. You may have heard of the Billion Oyster Project.
Right.
The town of Mashpee was the first in the state to grow oysters for water quality purposes, not for aquaculture purposes. So there may be opportunities to actually use shellfish, not for aquaculture, but for water quality. There's also, I mentioned, and there's Rich is involved, and Alex and others in eelgrass restoration. In fact, I got pictures sent from Allie that you guys were out, was that last weekend, with people from the North-South River watershed. They were doing an eelgrass seeding installation actually last weekend in Duxbury Bay. So there's activity there, and I know the Duxbury Beach Reservation is high. They have a ton of marsh. They own a lot of property inside of the beach, and they're very interested and have been doing a multi-year survey on marsh habitat and marsh restoration. So I think there's going to be initiatives that each of these things, eelgrass, marsh grass, and shellfish, have the potential to remove nutrients from the watersheds. And, best if you can prevent them from getting into the watershed. Next best is if they're in, try and remove them. And then the third, and I'm really it's so lucky for our community that these organizations from the Cape have been doing this work, and going back to Mass Bays in 2006. I'm also really excited that DBMS is super well positioned to leverage education, integrate citizen science, get people in the community to volunteer, because I think we have to make sure we maintain the data that's been generated in the past, but then we need to try and enhance it. There's a lot of technology. You can get data more with less labor than going and getting bottles and sending it to a lab. So we want to take advantage of that, because I think ultimately, this is a virtuous cycle. We need to try and identify and eliminate sources, undertake remediation, measure the effects,
Right.
iterate, and loop. So I don't know exactly what's the best way. I mean, Fernando, we had a conversation. I think the Board of Health and the Conservation Commission, from a town standpoint, are well positioned to probably assist with the nitrogen source detection. But I don't know. I think we need to do a little bit more work to figure out what's the best way we can get our arms around what are the best opportunities to reduce at the source.
So maybe I'm hearing a conversation with the Board of Health, make the presentation to the Board of Health and Conservation Commission, and basically see if we can get at least some interest in doing this work.
Yeah.
But it also seems, though, is that we could do something with the use of fertilizer, right? I mean, that's something we can think about as a town, whether we...
Board of Health.
Yes.
Board of Health?
So
Okay.
could we, Nancy, can you click on the Conservation Commission website for the towns? We have a landscaper in Duxbury, Eagle's Nest, who signed a landscaper's pledge
Right.
to follow best practices for nitrogen fertilizer application. Towns have done seasonal bans, so it really is crazy to apply fertilizer in Duxbury before April 15th, maybe even May 1st.
Right.
And yet you see it all the time. You see fertilizer being applied by vendors, and I'm sure many homeowners are applying fertilizer as soon as you get a nice day in March.
Right.
But yeah, fertilizer. But again, I think, Fernando, it would be good to identify, like, how much does the town use? That's data that you have on North Hill and also on all the playing fields.
Okay.
It's really open fields where people are applying a lot of fertilizer. So if you add up all the lawn,
Yeah.
that's where the fertilizer is being applied.
Okay.
So we should be able to get like an 80-20. You can identify,
Right.
a relatively small number of parcels that are most likely contributing to most of the fertilizer use. Okay, so if you go over to the Duxbury water quality. Yeah, if you click on there. So this, we made this website. Yeah, now if you look at, we just posted today, you see State of Duxbury Bay 2025. So this is a great resource for the community. All these reports are here, the presentation, the key findings, the executive summary, plus the supporting documents, the State of the Bay 2009, and the Mass DEP draft report from 2017. So that's all available now for the community that anyone who has an interest can dig in. And yeah, this is the exciting part, because I think it's fair to say on our committee, there wasn't a consensus, and my own bias was like, oh, it's probably going to be Plymouth and Kingston that are worse off. I did want to say, as part of this, I think we had a meeting, and there were something like 40 organizations last February representing. So the Kingston Conservation Commission, Jones River Watershed, Plymouth Conservation, Wildlands Trust, on and on and on. We had a large meeting at DBMS in February, and another one is planned. So there's people on the South Shore that are really tuning into this, not just in Duxbury, but in their own watersheds. And again, I'd say we're 20 years behind Buzzards Bay, but we're headed in that same direction because of the pressures.
Support the course of action. Well, this is what I'm trying to get wrap it up, but in my head, what action? So what I'm hearing is a survey of fertilizer usage within the town organization, and then requesting the same information from the Duxbury Yacht Club, right?
Well, it's really, I say the fertilizer is actually, think about the contribution. The fertilizer is going to be, say, 75 or 80%.
Yeah.
We got to get on that. We have to understand what's happening at our own water treatment plant, what's happening at the shared Snug Harbor system.
Right.
And again, Wadsworth has a shared system, but it's on the backside of Eagle's Nest that gets tons of Cape Cod, water exchange.
Right.
So that's like a would like not must have.
Yeah.
We must understand what's happening with the shared system from Snug Harbor.
Okay.
Have to understand the DPW's operation of our water treatment plant to see if there are nitrogen limits, how are they being measured, what are they? Because, all that stuff is stuff that we should be able to analyze, but it takes some work. So I would say, Fernando, yes, fertilizer, but we also really have to get our hands on septic systems and likely sources.
So fertilizer. Okay, I'm trying to.
Are both of those the Board of Health?
So I'm going to a Conservation Commission meeting on December 2nd to have this discussion, and we'll make sure that we engage with the Board of Health.
Right.
To see if we can get their assistance and advice.
Right. Well, so visit with the Conservation Commission then and Board of Health, share with them this presentation, share with them your recommendations of actions that should be taken, and then maybe we can feedback. Your single point of contact, maybe feedback to the Select Board how that was received,
yeah.
and any actions and any requests of the Select Board as to. At the end of the day, money may be required, right, to go ahead and do this work. So I don't know, but we need to start.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to figure out.
Yeah, I think
how to start this.
I think again, this is a Commonwealth priority for coastal communities. We need to educate ourselves on resources available to support us. So I just would say this is a good, okay, here's the State of the Bay 2025.
Right.
A lot of work to come, and I think a lot of people are excited to try and pitch in and see if we can make a difference going forward.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead, but you're going to have to go to the microphone.
Peter to repeat my question rather than...
Sure. Of course.
Has the school system gotten into this? Do we have it in the curriculum?
Well, yeah, so that's,
repeat the
that,
question for
yes, the
me?
question is, are our public schools engaged? And that's a softball for me, given my, love of our schools. And no, I think that's very much a thing that also DBMS is trying to foster, is the programming development and experiences with our public schools. Yeah, so I would say very supportive, and a lot of it depends on, our superintendent is very supportive. She's aware of all this work. So I think there's a lot of aspects of our community that can be energized with, hey, this is something that's in our control. Like, we can't control if Cape Cod Bay gets a lot warmer, but we can control how much nitrogen is going in the bay from septic systems and fertilizer. So I think people are psyched to step up and try and help.
Well, thank you for a great presentation.
Yeah.
Before you go, though, are there other folks who'd like to speak to this? I see Dick Brennan, for example. Do you have anything from Shellfish Advisory that you'd like to contribute to the conversation, or is there anybody else who'd like to address this? Yeah, Lenore, yes, please come on up and introduce yourself.
My name is Lenore White. I reside on Pine Street. I'm also the chair of the Coastal Resiliency Task Force. Thank you, Peter. That was an excellent presentation. And I just wondered, I didn't hear the word stormwater mentioned, and I just was curious whether or not you think stormwater might be a source of nutrients, and what ways, if any, should the town pursue in addressing that?
Yeah, great. Yes.
If you can come to the microphone, Peter, please. Maybe we'll get some extra microphones.
Sorry, Lenore, is that the only question you have?
Yes.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
goodness.
yes, stormwater, order of magnitude probably smaller than septic. So that's why septic is really the one that deserves the most attention. And a fertilizer, we can make an impact. And again, it's difficult, but some of this source assessment would help us. If there was a reason that, for some reason, our stormwater runoff would be an outlier in terms of contributions, then we could try and deal with that. But I would say septic and fertilizer, and septic is number one to think about.
All right. And Holly, do you have anything from Conservation you want to add? No? Okay. All right. Go right ahead, Alicia. If you can introduce yourself. We know who you are, but folks at home might not.
Alicia Babcock, Ocean Road South. I just had a question about the map that you showed. Is the majority of the algae and the problem more like in the back river section? Is it flushing out more down like Bug Light? Is that, I couldn't really see over there.
Yeah. So I think, so the question is, is it more of a back river or bay? And really, I think the right way to think about it is the harbor master, the nitrogen levels are too high. So I think of it as a line between the harbor master and High Pines. Surprisingly, Eagle's Nest is not as bad as I might have thought, just as a layperson. Again, there's a lot more water that goes in and out there. Saquesh, the Gurnet, around Eagle's Nest, Kingston Bay, the water is just exchanging dramatically more than up in the back river and the Bluefish. So I would say kind of harbor master to High Pines north. It's everything. Yeah.
Just occurred to me, is there any chance that some of that stuff from Kingston and Plymouth is getting pushed down to our end of the bay and getting stuck there?
No.
Good question.
No, they got wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, it's not coming up this way though. It's, again, the channel, it's an 80-foot deep channel. The water's running kind of out into Cape Cod Bay. And someone who's more of an expert than me want to comment? Alex, do you want to comment?
I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, hard for it to get up and go this way when you have that volume of water going straight out into Cape Cod Bay.
Do you have another question?
I just had a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Just tossing this out there. Sometimes things are like obvious in front of us and we don't realize. But I was just sitting there and I was saying to myself, this is kind of a newish type of problem. I mean, we've had septic systems forever. People have been fertilizing forever, and notwithstanding the fact that fertilizer isn't good and that we could probably do better there. I was just thinking to myself, it seems like the problem is sort of isolated down in that bridge area, and just because of the research I've been doing lately, I just would like to read you something quickly. That the decomposition of wood can create nitrogen microbes that releases nitrogen compounds as it decompresses underwater, and bacteria can convert to organic nitrogen in forms like ammonia and nitrate that could be used by other marine organisms. There are other things here too. There's the decay.
Just a little bit, I'm having.
The decay in the marine environment, broken down by microorganisms like bacteria and fungi. Ammonification is the process where organic nitrogen in the wood is converted to ammonia. Other bacteria can convert to other nitrogen compounds such as nitrite and nitrate. And then it says algae blooms. This excess nitrogen can fuel the rapid growth of algae and phytoplankton, causing algae blooms that deplete oxygen in the water and harm fish and other marine animals. So it just seems like this is maybe coinciding with the deterioration, maybe with the pilings. And I don't know if maybe that's relative or not, but we are repairing with in a way where we're assisting those pilings and not removing the decay. So I'm just saying, like, maybe there's a possibility that could be contributing over there because we're not cutting out the decayed wood. That's all. Just wanted to toss that out for the committee. Maybe if somebody could look into that, that might be just an obvious cause that by fixing the bridge, maybe we eliminate a lot of that problem.
Here, I'll throw it to you to inquire of the group if somebody wants to address that.
No.
All right, so there's no answer at this time, okay.
No answer.
Volume-wise, I suspect the
Can you go to the microphone, please?
Yeah. Decomposing organic material will get back the nitrogen, but there's a lot of organic. I would say, again, just a layperson, I imagine the volume of organics in the pilings and the bridge compared to all the organics in the Back River and the Bluefish River is a very small contributor, I would guess.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Anything further from the board?
Any thought about the shellfish oyster reef? Anyway.
I really do hope.
Nobody jumping up to build it. Okay, all right. We need to work on that one.
We have other
Great
towns.
idea, by the way.
We have other towns and communities that have done things to address septic. We have had numerous meetings where Bose stood up there and said, I don't know why Kingston and Plymouth don't have a problem and Marshfield doesn't have a problem with PFAS. Duxbury does. And we have this presentation about septic. I think we need to get aggressive about solving the source of these contaminants, focus on septic and also fertilizers. We've asked people to pay more in their water bills for grand plans of cleaning water and these other ideas to clean the water, but we got to go to the source. And I may be wrong, but I've heard it like 10 times. Where multiple presentations about our water quality, both in the ground and in the bay, and it keeps coming back to the septic issue. I'm just going to keep saying it.
All right. If there's nothing further on this topic, I will move on. Thank you all.
I just want to thank Peter and everybody who has contributed to this report, and look forward to hearing back from you with regards to your conversations with the Florida Health and Conservation Commission, and see what we can do to help. Thank you.
Thank you again to everybody who was involved.
Septic tanks.
And for those board and committee chairs, in the room, let's update your comprehensive plan status reports, please. All right. I'm trying. I get it on the record. It's all right. We're going to reach out. That's all right. All right, folks, we still have business to attend to here, so I'll ask you to take your conversations to the hall.
Doing liquor licenses, in case you're...
Yep. All right, next is a discussion and vote pertaining to annual liquor licenses and associated common victualler, innkeeper, and entertainment license renewals for 2026. Rainey, I'll throw it to you for this.
You've got the list, and you've got the motion. There it is. It's about
Any
as straightforward as
issues-
it gets.
Any issues with any of the existing licenses that we need to address? Any concerns? Any neighborhood complaints?
None. If there
Changes,
were, you wouldn't have them.
amendments.
You wouldn't have them in front of you.
All right. Okay. Terrific. Fernando's going to come back to read the motion.
Sorry about that.
So I want to get everybody out by 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
I move that the Select Board renew the following liquor licenses and associated common victualler, innkeeper, and entertainment licenses as presented on the attached list for the year 2026, subject to the satisfactory inspections by the Municipal Services Department, Board of Health, and Fire Department. Receipt of all renewable requirements and payment of all fund and fees owed to the town of Duxbury, as well as any additional conditions imposed by the Select Board as the local licensing authorities.
I think we have a lengthy.
Do I have to read out all the? Where's the list?
Yep.
Okay, where's that?
There it is.
Oh, I don't have it here. Okay. All right, and the 2026 liquor license renewals as presented in the attachment along with the motion.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 4-0. Town manager's report. Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick update on the Powder Point Bridge replacement project, and more specifically, the next public meeting. Last week, Sheila and I received an email from Marco Pereira, the supervising project manager at Mass DOT for the Powder Point Bridge project, related to our thoughts on the next public meeting. We discussed the idea of having that meeting at around the 6-week mark, as had been originally planned. However, upon further review of the various schedules, coupled with the holiday season, we agreed that it seemed prudent to do it after the new year. Before committing to a new date, I ran the idea by Brian, and he agreed with us that after the first of the year made more sense. At the moment, we're looking at the 3rd week of January, keeping in mind that Monday, January 19th, is the Martin Luther King holiday. Once we've confirmed a date, time, and location, we'll be sure to update the board and other town entities, and the town residents and Mass DOT will provide ample notice to the public as well, since they have for their previous meetings.
Rainey?
Yeah.
Ed Mayo wanted to get in here earlier and talk about the waivers that the Powder Point Bridge Advisory Committee had been discussing, or is that still on the agenda? Or
I don't know that he's presented them to us, has he?
I don't know.
I've only seen him cursory online and other.
I just wanted to know whether he wanted to come in. Yeah.
I'm sure. Can I maybe? As the liaison, the last time I talked with him with regards to the waivers, there's a whole list of waivers we should share at the meeting, and I think he discussed it with Marco, and then Marco said, let's wait until January, whatever it is, and then you'll see how many of the waivers we've incorporated, and if there's any waivers outstanding, then we can enter into the discussion for. I think the message is that DOT is looking at all these waivers and actually trying to incorporate them into the proposed bridge.
You're right, and he had a very high percentage of them that were going to be included that weren't even going to be an issue.
Exactly. So let's wait, right? Let's wait until we see what it looks like, and then we'll go through our list. The Powder Point Advisory Bridge Committee will go through that list of waivers to see any remaining that we feel as a community should be included in the design, and then we can enter and have a conversation with DOT, say, okay, so you enter.
I'm okay with it as long as if the Powder Point Bridge Advisory Committee wants to come before us sooner, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
That's
They
my
wanted a plan design first
Yeah.
to see how much of
Yeah.
those, how many of those waivers were already.
In other words, there's no point in having a conversation, or
If
it's,
there is, I just want to.
well, with, yeah, we can go through and look at the list, right? Which is, I think, what was, when I looked at the video, I think Christine was actually trying to read through the list that actually came from Ed Mayo, right? So we've got a lot on the agenda. To us to discuss something that, at the end of the day, maybe 50% of it's moot, so to speak, and let's focus our time on getting the waivers that they haven't incorporated that are important to us, then we can really start.
Got it.
Yep.
But when we say the waivers,
Yes.
these aren't things that the select board was involved in.
No.
These are a list of, so we delegated a lot of this work to the task force.
Correct.
Or the advisory committee, if you recall them.
Yeah.
They, as a group, on our behalf,
Yes.
have come up with a list of 50 or so
Waivers.
waivers. And when we say waivers, it's waivers from applicable state and federal
Correct.
requirements
So-
for the bridge. If they were to do the bridge
Yeah.
without waivers, it would look like X.
It looked like a highway bridge, right?
Okay.
And then basically with the waivers, one of the waivers is basically to go ahead and reduce the load limit to 4 tons, right? So then that prevents big trucks and, all sorts of stuff going on there. That would be one of the waivers. They could be incorporating. The use of wood is another waiver. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that.
Let me stop you there, though.
Yeah.
So just, and this is why I'm bringing it up now.
Yeah.
To the extent that there's a weight limit waiver, for example,
Yeah.
do we know that the the task force has conferred with, say, the fire chief to make sure that that waiver is still sufficient to carry heavy fire equipment across the board?
Then we get into, right, that's the way the bridge is right now. The bridge
get
has
that.
been derated. So we've been living with it.
Yes.
Okay, we've been living with it, and it's been acceptable. If, as a town, if the select board now says, well, hold on a sec, we actually want a full fire truck, then we're changing the design of the bridge. Right? And then basically I mean, that's,
Well, that's why I raise it, because I don't know that that's necessarily something that we would want to delegate to this advisory board. I think it would come back to
Well-
the select board.
Well, I think that what he was saying is that they would look and see what waivers have been
Yep.
incorporated and what haven't, and then it would come back to
Yeah.
us.
No, I get that, but my point being is, are we comfortable, we as a select board, comfortable with the waivers in the first place?
Well,
So such as a weight limit, maybe we do want the bridge to be sufficient to carry a full-size fire truck.
Based on
but-
the DOT standards, I
Yeah.
suspect that it will be.
Well, I
The-
presume
the
so, but we get one
imposition-
chance,
The imposition
right?
of the weight limit isn't just something that the state dictates. In this case, it's our weight limit, the town enacted.
Okay,
It's
no, I
not-
get that too,
The
and-
bridge
and-
is actually rated for 6 tons, but we put it at 4.
Okay.
No, because
but the-
okay, doesn't matter. We don't.
Yeah, well, fire apparatus, for example, but also EVs are much heavier than internal combustion engines. So if everything's going to be electric in the next 20, 30, 40 years, we need to anticipate the additional weight. So,
Okay, maybe that was a wrong example. Okay, I just, anyway.
well, no,
I
and that's
just-
why I bring it up is, I don't,
Do we want to go through the list of 60 waivers? That's the question that you're asking, right, Mike?
Yeah, and I just don't know if you want to take our concerns back to the committee and see if they want to come to us.
All right, let me have a word with Ed. How about that?
Yeah, I'm just here to help.
I would like to
understand.
see
And I
the waiver list.
All right,
I don't believe I've seen that.
okay.
And that's not to say that any of them are wrong.
No,
But I want to make sure that once we ask Mass DOT to bake them in, that we have buy-in from this board as being ultimately the ones responsible to the voters and the citizens, that's reflective of what the citizens are looking for.
I think, okay. All right, moving on.
All right, continue with the town manager's report.
That was
Mr.
it.
Reed. That was it?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions for the town manager? All right, committee appointments and reappointments. We have one.
Yeah, I've moved that Select Board appoints Pauline Flynn to the Duxbury Housing Authority to fill an unexpired term ending the March 1st, 2030. It's a term for 5 years.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. 4-0. And thank you to Ms. Flynn. I understand she was
One question there. That's an elected position.
This
right?
is let me read this out. This is an elected position. However, the current member has resigned. Pauline was second place in our March 2025 elections. The town clerk has confirmed that Pauline can be appointed by the select board to fulfill this unexpired term.
I only say that because I know I just said aye, but for any other unexpired elected positions, we've had a process that we've done. And I have no concern with Pauline Flynn. I think she'll do an excellent job. I just don't know.
You're
Why?
right. We have.
Yeah.
We had it for the planning board
Yeah.
a couple times. Perfect.
Research that, and they both came to the same agreement.
Perfect.
So it's
So
actually
we-
not March 1st, it's for the election.
Okay.
Oh, to the okay.
So we thank Ms. Flynn for stepping up.
Yes.
First for standing for election, now stepping up now that the position is vacant. We have some liquor license requests, one-day liquor license requests. The first is Snug Harbor Community Chorus Event on December 14.
Right, which one? We looking at?
Snug Harbor Community, right here.
Oh, the voting
I
one
see,
is-
they're in reverse order.
Different order, right.
Okay, no problem.
So I move that Ms. Pamela Campbell-Smith, as a representative of the Snug Harbor Community Chorus, is granted a one-day wine and malt license for their scholarship fundraiser on Sunday, December 14th, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the Senior Center, Ellison Room, 10 Mayflower Street, Duxbury, subject to the conditions of the license.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 4-0. Next is Sportworks Winterfest for December 6th.
I move that Mr. Paul Scheil, as a representative of the 42nd Parallel Brewing Company, is granted a one-day wine and malt license for the Winterfest event on Saturday, December 6, 2025, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Sportswork Limited parking lot, 116 Tremont Street, Duxbury, subject to the conditions of the license.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 4-0. Next is an event permit for the St. George Street Garage Toy Drive with Santa for December 13th.
I move that Mr. Michael Staple, as a representative of St. George Street Garage, is granted event permit for the Toy Drive with Santa event on Saturday, December 13th, 2025, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at St. George Street Garage, 260 St. George Street, Duxbury, contingent upon the conditions of the permit.
We have motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 4-0. We have minutes. First is executive session minutes from November 5.
I move to approve the 5th of November 2025 Select Board Executive Session minutes regarding Duxbury Energy Storage litigation, with the contents remain confidential until the need has passed. Mike, please
Yep.
abstain.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Abstain.
3-0-1. Open session minutes from November 3.
I move that Select Board approve the November 3rd, 2025 Select Board Open Session minutes as presented. Fernando, please abstain.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions?
I abstain.
3-0-1. Thank you, Mr. Guitart. Would you like to declare a bonus shellfish season?
I would love to declare a bonus shellfish season.
Please do.
I move that the Select Board declares a temporary bonus shellfish season for 1, the commercial harvesting of soft shell clams for the month of December, regulations as attached. The commercial harvesting of cohogs. No.
All right.
Yeah.
Is it right?
Close enough.
Almost.
That's good.
I like the accent.
Clams, cohogs.
Yeah.
Yay,
Yeah, there it
cohogs.
is.
Clams for the month of December, regulations as attached.
Well done.
Cohog.
May I have a second?
Oh, second.
All right, motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 4-0. Do we have some announcements?
We certainly do. Town Hall will be closed on Thursday and Friday, November 27th and 28th for the Thanksgiving holiday. Reminder, articles for town meeting must be submitted to the town manager's office by 4 p.m. on Monday, December 1st, 2025. The complete article language and a brief explanation of the article are required. Please join us at the annual J. Cox Christmas tree sale located at 214 West Street, Duxbury, on Saturday, December 6th and Sunday, December 7th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., weather and tree inventory permitting. Visit the Conservation Department's page for pricing and updates at www.town.duxbury.ma.us/conservation. Cash or check are the only forms of payment accepted. Next scheduled Select Board meeting will be on Monday, December 8th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the Mural Room.
Sorry. And of
Quite a
course, we
break.
wish everyone a happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
I wanted to congratulate the boys varsity and the girls varsity soccer teams who were playing the playoffs, the Final Four. They both won this evening.
Congratulations. Go
Congratulations.
Dragons.
Yeah,
They will move on.
and football's moving
And
on,
good luck to the football team as well.
and the
on Friday.
cheerleaders are moving on too.
Cheerleaders as
They
well.
are moving on to
All killing it. It's awesome.
regionals
us
out in
proud.
Worcester. Yeah,
Excellent.
Congratulations to all. Keep up the great work.
yeah, a lot of
May I
champs.
have a motion to adjourn?
You may have a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions, motion carries 4-0. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.